A lot of people drive past this house every day, heading up to Wingala to see the platypus or out to the falls. Very few realise the historical significance of a place like this. Next time you're out and about driving around and you come across an old house, take time and stop and talk to the people there at the house. You might be surprised just some of the information you find out. In today's film we're going to talk about this little cottage and some of the history that it has for the Pioneer Valley. We're at about 50 k's outside of Mackay, just before you reach Finch Hatton. We're going to be talking to the owner and the caretaker, John Buton. Welcome to Local Notices, Mr. Buton. Thank you very much for allowing us to record here today. What would you like to tell us about this old house?
Well, to start, I would like to use this book as a starting point. It has been written by one of the earlier pioneers, 1934, and he knows a fair bit about everything. And the bit I would like to mention is what he has to say about Finch Hatton at that time. Finch Hatton is in the Pioneer Valley, west of Mackay. Till 1900, a mere handful of settlers lived in the valley. But the discovery of gold, rich stands of cedar, that is Mackay cedar, and ideal soil for growing sugarcane soon called for a central village that was named Finch Hatton. The real boom began in 1904 with the arrival of the railway line. A sugar mill was built in 1906, following in 1909 by a school with 100 pupils, and by 1910 the district population was 870. 2 years later, the township boasted a turf club, progress association, and a uniform brass band. All of a sudden, it was the commercial and social hub of the valley. In 1904, the people of Finch Hatton asked the Queensland government to help them build a sugar mill. The government gave the Finch Hatton Milling Sugar Association permission to sell 1 kilometre of land on the Youngala Road. This is from the other side of BP, which is the Orange Creek town off, and up to what is now known as Hanson's house. There are 10 allotments, each with 100 metre frontage to the road and 100 metres depth to the creek. Each allotment is 1 hectare of land. These people that bought the land were offered a job in the mill, which was yet to be built. All sorts of people were needed to build the mill. So, if you came off the tall ships and you were used to pulling up the sails, you then got a job in the mill as a rigger. If you were capable of adding up money, hey, you became the treasurer, the paymaster. You need all sorts of people to get this particular mill started. Well, the person that bought this allotment of land is called Robert McMinn. That is the same as in Mount Isa mines, and he would have lived in a tent, as most people did when they were pioneering. Later on they would build himself a shed, and when he accumulated enough money, he would have built this house. This house was basically 2 rooms and a veranda on the front. The veranda itself was open and it had a bullnose roof on it. As time went by, 1/4 of this allotment of land was a miniature farm. Everybody those days lived a subsistence type living. The other 3/4 of the land grew cane. McMahon would have had to work hard, as he would have had to use a mattock to dig a hole to put the sticker cane in, which stood up like a tent peg. He had a job in the mill. He's literally a nobody. His job, he looked after the cane field. He insisted on doing no work on the mini farm. The wife literally had to do the lot. The kitchen itself is a separate to the house. She would have had to cut the firewood, do the cooking. Half of this room would have been the dining room, lounge room, whatever. This part of the room I'm in was the bedroom. They lived, I imagine, pretty well up to the year 1927. In that year, there was a big drought. Nobody had any cane, or very little. The mill, which had promised all these people a job, the mill had to renege on their promise, and they literally said, we cannot afford to pay you till the start of the next crushing. Basically, people, it doesn't matter who you were not able to help your neighbours simply because everybody is in the same boat. No crop, no money, unable to think what to do next. Well, this where I'm sitting is basically the bedroom. Mrs. McMahon is flat out here on the bed. She hears a great thump. She sits up in the bed. She looks out that window there, and there is the man, McMahon, getting back up onto the chair. He is shortening up the rope, which he is tied to an overhead beam, and the first time he stepped off the chair and both feet hit the floor. Mrs. McMahon is instantly awake. She knows exactly what he's doing, and she literally says, "Bug it, I've had him. I've had this lifestyle. I want out of here." She could have stopped him. This happened on a Saturday night. The next morning, the neighbouring woman is going up to church. She's a Roman Catholic. She's got a best dress on. Women those days only had two dresses. One was their best dress, and this dress literally was used for every occasion which they may have attended. The dress is about 1.5 meters wide in the bottom if she stretched the dress out. She is riding the horse and buggy. Beside her is her small son, perhaps 5 years old. She's trotting up the road gently. When she saw the body swinging from the rafter, she threw her dress over the small boy's face and body. She then went up to the RC church, putting the horse into a full gallop, and she said, "I'm not going back down there. He's hung himself." After a while, the men from the church came down and they said, "Hey, missus, are you awake? Don't look out the window, what she did, she sat up in the bed, and like a true woman, she went into hysterics. She knew nothing about what happened. No. Well, from that point on, the farm is obviously for sale. This happened in 1927, and the farm was unsold till 1934, and it was bought by the Honeywell family, and from that point lean-to extensions were built on every side of the house. I came to this area to cut cane in 1967. I lived over that way, about 30 metres. I lived in a hut. The farmer lived in this house. I used to cut burnt cane with a bat knife, and this I did till 1973. This basically makes me the last Australian cane cutter. True. The year after me, 1974, there were 2 cane cutters in the Nambour mill area, and the father and son had the contract to cut the cane to the Nambour mill. The father died. The son threw the cane knife and walked away. If he'd stayed till the end of the caution, he would have been the last. About 2010 or 2011, there was a woman wandering around with a very flash camera, taking photos from every side of the house, just single snaps. She then did a bit of writing on a piece of paper, on a notepad. This is something I've never seen before. Mostly people sit out in the car, take a snap, and they're gone. They've learnt nothing. This woman, I was over in the shed there, just making a bit of noise to let her know I was there. She asked me permission, could she come inside the house? And I said yes. She had with her 2 little boys, maybe 6 and 8 years old. I told her much the same thing, watch out for the floorboards and all that. She wasn't much interested in the lean-to parts of the house. She was more interested in this particular, well, it was 2 rooms. I've removed the centre wall there, and I told her my version of what happened out there. She listened, she didn't comment, she didn't say anything, but after a while she looked at the 2 boys and she said, "This is the house your great-grandfather built." As it is, I asked the young lady what it was all about, and she told me that she is writing up the family history. And she has told me this story about what happened out there, which would be as true as it could be. And the writing on the paper are notes of the house and whatever else she likes to write about. She told me this story. I believe it to be true.
No worries, thank you very much for your time. So the next time you're travelling through, heading up to the Finchhatton Gorge, feel free to call in, say good day to Mr. Buton, and have a bit of a chat. You might be surprised what you can learn about this area.